You know how you get notice when someone has hacked your data as a part of a breach of some private company? Well, consider this your warning that your data may have been breached. In this case, the culprit is Donald Trump. So what is this all about? Well, the Department of Homeland Security is seeking to get access to millions and millions and millions of records of Americans from the IRS. They are building a computer system in which the Department of Homeland Security can, through an automated process, get access to taxpayer records. Now, taxpayer records are among the most secure records in the federal government. In fact, it is a felony to misuse the private information of taxpayers at the IRS that can lead to a 5-year conviction for misappropriating that data. That's how seriously the federal government takes when it comes to protecting your tax information. So giving all that information to another agency is unprecedented. Now, in the past, if there was evidence that a particular taxpayer was engaged in a particular crime, then an agency could request those records, but you had to show that they were related to a specific crime, that you had a specific need for those records. This would allow the Department of Homeland Security to gain access to millions of records at a time, never having to justify it. Now, the Department of Homeland Security says, well, we want to do this because we want to try to find undocumented immigrants. Well, there's several problems with this. The first is they're gaining access to millions of records, people who are documented and citizens and people who are undocumented. So this is not going to discriminate about whose taxpayer information is going to be floating to this other agency. But more than that, we're supposed to be encouraging people who are in this country but who are undocumented to pay their taxes. And we've promised them, well, we're not going to penalize you for doing what we want you to do, and that is abide by the law and pay taxes. So now we're going to renege on that. We're going to use people's good faith payment of taxes to go after them. How does that make any sense? What's more, the Trump administration, of course, said that their immigration policy was going to be focused after going after violent criminals. Well, it's not usually the violent criminals who are undocumented who are going to be good tax-paying residents. So that doesn't square up either. And here's the added risk to you, and that is time after time after time we have seen, notwithstanding even the best efforts, government databases hacked by foreign adversaries, particularly by China, but also by other foreign nations and private hacking groups and bad actors. So there have been publicly acknowledged breaches of data at the State Department and the Office of Personnel Management. Some of them have been in the scope of millions of personnel records, for example, by hostile governments. If we aggregate all this data, if we put it all in one place, then it is all subject to one spectacular hack. That doesn't make our country safer. None of this makes our country safer. But what it does do is put your personal private data at risk. Now, the first general counsel at the IRS quit because he said, this isn't legal, this isn't appropriate, this is dangerous. He quit. They replaced him with a guy named Andrew DeMello. He was the next general counsel. He reviewed a request to obtain 7 million records. The Department of Homeland Security wanted access to 7 million taxpayer records. He said, no, that does not meet the privacy requirements established within the IRS. You have to identify specific criminal cases. You can't just say, give me 7 million records. DeMello was forced out because he wouldn't go along with that lawless action. So they're going to replace him with someone else, someone more pliable, someone more willing to do the dirty work of the administration, someone who's more willing to put your taxpayer records at risk. And that is in no one's interest, except maybe for Stephen Miller, who has no problem invading your privacy, who has no problem with the indiscriminate immigration raids, who has no problem using that massive new government database to go after anyone who displeases the administration. So can we have any trust that this administration would be able to handle this new, bigger database? Well, if the emailing of CIA personnel to the White House in unclassified email is any indication, then no, we shouldn't have much confidence. If the use of commercial signal apps to discuss war plans is any illustration, then no, we should not have that confidence. I know I certainly don't. This is terrible policy, It is dangerous. It is abuse of people's taxpayer records. It will be a deterrent to people paying their taxes when we want to need them to do so. This is taking our country another step backwards, closer to an authoritarian regime that may have access to more of your personal and private data, and farther away from the protection of our national security and our privacy. So when you think of government hacks and breaches, you might be thinking of a scene like this.
System breach.
Oh.
Firewall 1.
We got a problem.
What?
Someone synced a rat to one of my servers. A remote access tool. We're being hacked.
By Loxat?
I don't know.
But we've been so careful. How could they find us?
They haven't found us yet. Just cracked the outer layer of our system. I'll start.
But in the future, we might be thinking of a scene like this.
And President Trump will make sure that in this country, not illegal aliens, not criminals, not gangbangers, but American citizens come.
Hey everybody, so I started to make these nightly videos because I kept hearing from people with everything going on. It'd be nice to have some explanation at the end of the day that helps make sense of it all. So that's what I've tried to do, but I would love your feedback, and if you'd like to continue the conversation, please join along. But let me know, are there subjects you want me to cover? Are there movie clips you want me to include? As you can tell, I'm a movie fan, but I hope we'll get to continue the conversation and welcome your feedback.